Bonjour, Kinamagi and Ireland Indigenous, and welcome to this production of Social Studies Television. Today's edition, Chapter 4, Section 2, Climate. We'll begin by actually discussing what that word climate means, and it is not the same as weather. Weather changes pretty quickly. As a Michigander, you're probably well aware of that. One day it might be sunny and 70, and 2 days later, 6 inches of snow on the ground, or maybe even the same day. Weather changes very quickly, and we look at it in forecasts of about 3 to 4 days out. Climate is the average weather over a long period of time. It is influenced by such things as oceans, like the Pacific and the Atlantic, and even the lakes of the Great Lakes. It's impacted by latitude or distance from the equator. It can be impacted by elevation. It's definitely going to be much chillier on the top of a mountain than it is going to be in the valley. But in the United States, we break it down into different climate zones. And you could see a few here before we start this map. We have some big areas of blue. Those are humid continental. Humid means it's not a very dry air, so we do get precipitation. Continental means a lot of times the air is coming across the continent, or either from Canada or across the United States. It's lost a little bit of its marine, so it's not like water blowing off, clouds coming up off the ocean and dumping it right here. There's a lot of things in between. You'll notice that they have a warm summer versus a cool summer, and that's relative. We know it's a little bit warmer in southern Michigan than it is in northern Michigan, and that partially by elevation. But we'll also notice that if you look right in here, that warm summer kind of goes up a little further. The Great Lakes will impact our climate here in Michigan. That's why we can grow crops in one area, but not maybe 40 miles further over. You can see that we have a green, humid subtropical. It's going to be very warm and humid. On a day like today, in November of 2020, it's about 20 degrees warmer right here in Fredericksburg, Virginia, than it is in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. That can vary. Sometimes the temperatures are almost the same. Sometimes it could be 40 or 60 degrees difference. But for today, it's about 20 degrees. But in this area, you get much more influence on the ocean and bringing in some of that humid air. And you can see down here in Florida, we have tropical kind of environment, but we're not going to look at that because realistically, the British colonies only come down to here. So we're going to be focused on these three. Says you recently learned about some of the main physical features of the colonies. Even though the 13 colonies are fairly close together and have many similarities, they have some very distinct physical differences. Throughout this section, fill in the graphic organizer in the widget to the left to help keep track of the similarities and differences. I will have shared this into your Google Classroom, so you don't actually have to click on the widget. You can. If you're looking at the PDF version of this, you have no chance to click on this and not have. But if you're using the full PDF from Chapter 4, you do. But like I said, it's going to be attached in the Google Classroom. So let's looking at climate. The three regions of the colonies, north, middle, and south, all have very different climate zones. This is because they span many lines of latitude. As you learned in the first chapter, lines of latitude show how far north or south the location is from the equator. That location has a very serious impact on the climate of an area. For example, the northern colonies, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire, have very cold winters, while the southern colonies, Maryland, Virginia, North and South Carolina, and Georgia, have a much milder winter. The northern or New England colonies are known for their cold winters. They're often hit with severe blizzards, and the northernmost states, like Maine, generally get around 100 inches of snow each year. New England is also known for having 4 distinct seasons. The spring, summer, and fall are very mild. However, there is a lot of precipitation throughout the year. The southern colonies have almost the opposite climate. They stay fairly warm all year, with temperatures often measuring around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Since they are farther south, these colonies don't have a very harsh winter. Though a mild winter may sound like fun, the summers there can be almost unbearable. In fact, several days in the summer, the temperature are likely to be over 100 degrees and very humid. The middle colonies, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York, and New Jersey, are generally known for their moderate climates. They tend to have mild summers and mild winters. This doesn't mean that they didn't get some serious storms too, but all in all, they tend to have a fairly constant temperature, normally around 54 degrees. This area does get around 45 inches of precipitation annually. And you can see there's a student activity, and that's to check out the weather. And you can see if there's any extreme weather, blizzards, hurricanes, tornadoes heading for any other region. So let's go and do this. Pick a few spots in the colonies. And I am currently in Fredericksburg, VA. There we go. So let's look at the forecast here, and then we'll pick Mount Pleasant, and we'll pick a couple other towns. So you can look, it's going to be it's already exceeded it. It's supposed to be low 60s today. You can see some rain is coming in the upcoming period of time. Ooh, definitely some rain coming on Monday night here, and it's going to drop off by 16 degrees, but then it quickly tries to reboot. Let's look at Pennsylvania. Let's pick a city in Pennsylvania. Let's go Breezewood. See if it shows up on here. There we go. Breezewood is kind of where you jump off the turnpike to head south. So you can see right now it's 49 degrees. So it's about 13 degrees colder, even though it's only a couple-hour drive. And looking down, daily forecast, get some rain coming. And it's going to be dropping down to about 38 degrees and then into the 30s. So there's a drop coming off. So let's look in another place going closer to home. Let's try Cleveland, Ohio, where it's only 44 degrees. As we look down the daily forecast, we have rain coming and dropping into the 30s. And then, of course, we got to check Mount Pleasant. Put Mount Pleasant, Michigan in here. So looking at Mount Pleasant, it's about 45. And we look down here, it's dropping into the 30s and then back to 40. So as we move inland, it does get cooler. In north, it does get cooler. But a lot of our spots were kind of across the same latitude, and the temperatures kind of tended to be the same compared to Fredericksburg, where I'm sitting. So let's look at a copy of this, and you can type this in on yours. So if you need to pause the video to get to your characteristics. And we look at New England colonies. We could kind of label them as humid continental cool summer. It's a little bit of both, but we'll go with the cooler summer here. And in the middle colonies, They had the warm summer. And we look back here, a lot of the green, humid, subtropical. That kind of covers the climate. So you can write this in. If you have to pause the video to do such, go ahead. All right, welcome back. So let's keep going. Now let's talk about geography. The colonies do have some similarities when it comes to geography. For instance, all the regions have access to the Atlantic Ocean at some point. They also have several rivers that flow through them. Forests can be found in every region. Finally, all the regions are affected, at least in part, by the Appalachian Mountains. Despite all of these similarities, each region has uniqueness when it comes to geography. Southern colonies are marked by very hilly coastal plains. They also have several swampy zones that the other colonial regions do not have. The area is filled with large, wide rivers. This region also has very good fertile soil because of the tides that come from the ocean. These tides deposited soil that is perfect for farming. So we're going to go back here and put in hilly coastal plains. It's kind of two different terms there. Plains tend to be flat, but it'll work. Now we'll go back here. New England colonies are very mountainous. Those mountains are covered with thick forests. Though there are several rivers in the area, the land is rocky and not very good for farming. Region originally had decent farmland, but the glaciers that once covered the area carried most of the good soil into the middle colonies. So we'll call this mountainous. Poor farmland. The middle colonies were a nice blend of features from the northern and southern colonies. While there are some forests, the area is also well suited for farming. It is fairly flat and very fertile soil. The area also has some river systems like the Hudson River in New York and the Delaware River, which flows to Philadelphia. So let's call this one flat, fairly flat and very fertile. Resources. Each region benefited greatly from the resources that could be found within them. For instance, one of the best resources in New England are the dense forests. Many trees were cut down for lumber. The forests also housed many animals that were hunted for their pelts and food. The oceans and river systems also offered access to fish and whales. The southern colonies also had access to lots of fish in the ocean and rivers. Several of the colonies made use of their pine forests and sold lumber. However, the most important resource to them was the fertile soil and warm climate. The combination allowed them to become a leader in farming. The middle colonies had all the benefits of the northern and southern colonies. They had forests to get lumber from and to hunt in. They had rivers and the ocean for fishing. The middle colonies had a wonderful farming system. However, they had some additional resources the other two regions didn't have. They were able to mine for coal and iron ore. Those two things were some of their most important resources. So let's go back to here. Agricultural. We're going to have fishing and manufacturing. Mining and manufacturing. They also had fish or farming as a big part. So this is just some of the important things that would go in here. Go ahead and fill this out if you need to. You do have a copy within your Google classroom that you should have filled out just as a resource. You should then go ahead and answer the questions found in the Google form. Have a great day. Mama P.